Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel, Scotty Cherie Reads. Today, finally, you guys are gonna hear my review on books that I've been reading since I've started this channel. So I haven't done a wrap up since February, I believe. So this wrap up is gonna be all the books that I read in March, April, and May of this year. If you've watched a couple of my other videos, you know that in the month of May, that was my 30th birthday, and I literally only read like one book for the entire month. So I only have 10 books to talk about for the 3 months, but hoping to pick up the amount of books I'm reading starting this month coming up. So grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's get into how I felt about all of these books. Come on. So getting right into the first book, I want to jump this off with a banger, which is Sula by Toni Morrison. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I am going through Toni Morrison's books in publication order. So I started with The Bluest Eye, which I really liked, and then Sula, which is the second publication that I read in March, I believe, or into February, one of the two. I adore this book. So this is my second time reading this book. I read it for the first time back in high school, which it's been a little bit of time since then, but I liked it in high school as well. I just think that I relate to it a lot more now being a 30-year-old woman. I'll give you a quick synopsis about what it's about. It's less than 200 pages, like 170, maybe 180 pages. So I don't want to say too much, but Toni Morrison packs a punch in these books. I just can't believe the amount of topics that she tackles efficiently and succinctly in these short novels. It's insane. Like, she is exceptional. But this story is pretty much about a coming of age story, and these women also go into adulthood together, and their names are Sula Peace and Nell Wright. And they're best friends, inseparable since childhood, and eventually Nell gets married and Sula takes the opportunity to just kind of leave and like do her own thing for a bit. Before she leaves, there's an event, a tragic event that happens, and it kind of tears them apart a little bit. So then Sula's away, Nell gets married, she's still in the same town, and I think like 15 years pass by, and then Sula comes back into town and trying to see like if they can rekindle their friendship, you know, and where they're at in life. That's all I really want to say about this book. I know it doesn't sound like insanely enthralling maybe, but it's so good. I do write down like different topics that Toni Morrison hits on in her novels because she hits on so many. So let me grab my phone and read some of those just to give you some context of the amount of things that she packs into this novel. 1 second. So I have written down, it says topics: being a Black woman, general sexuality, death, friendship, deception, generational trauma, motherhood, tragedies of war, gentrification, and so much more. So all of those things are in this tiny little book, and she does it effortlessly. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5. The next Toni Morrison that I need to pick up is Songs of Solomon, which I mentioned, I think, in my April TBR, but I have not gotten around to it yet, but that is the next book in this project that I have going on. So if you've read Toni Morrison, let me know what your favorite Toni Morrison is in the comments below. And if you haven't picked up Toni Morrison, Sula is a good place to start. So that's Sula. Let's get on to the next one. Next up on the list is the infamous Fourth Wing. And surprisingly, I loved this. Like, I wouldn't say I'm a crazy like Fourth Wing stan and like I want everyone to read it. I can completely understand why people don't like it and how it legitimately doesn't really make any sense. But this is based off of my just like pure enjoyment and joy with reading this book. Like, when I read this, nothing else in the world mattered. Like, I was just flipping through and wanted to know what was going on. I was compulsed to fucking read it, and I haven't felt that way from a book in quite a bit of time. I read a lot of heavy-hitting contemporary. It's like I say all the time. I feel like that should be my tagline. And also with fantasy, a lot of it is like heavy-hitting as well. But it was nice to just have a like fun, quick, fast-paced story to read. So I guess enough intro for the book. Let me tell you what it's about if you don't know. So it follows our main character, Violet Sorrengail, I believe her name is. and she's entering this war college, and there's different quadrants that you can like test into. So when she comes to the school, she thinks and has been planning her whole life that she wants to go into the scribe quarter, where it's like she's with books, she translates, she writes, you know, basic things that scribes do, which is what her dad actually did. However, her mother is actually like the commander-in-chief at this war college and basically forces Violet to take the writer's quadrant test, which is pretty much dragon writers. If you don't know, this is a very heavily dragon-influenced book. Like, it's all about dragons, which is awesome. And of course, these tasks are very, very dangerous, and the dragons talk and they interact, but it's ultimately up to the dragons to pick their writer, and they have to match, and then they have this very special bond. But of course, there's more writers than there are dragons, so if you're not paired with a dragon, then you're pretty much like killed as well. So a lot of death. Even with me explaining this story, you're probably like, wait, that makes no sense. But I promise it was a fun time. I'm actually gonna link a video from, oh my god, Katie Colson. And it's a rant review about this book, about how it doesn't make any sense. And even though I like the book, I completely agree with what she said. I just still really enjoyed it and had a good time, but it cracked me up. So if you have read the book and you haven't seen that video, you should check it out. Like I said, take it with a grain of salt. It's not the best writing, but if you just need a little pick-me-up, this is the one. I feel like if you're in a reading slump, like this is the one that could take you out of the reading slump. It was fun. The dragons were cute. But with that being said, Iron Flame is the second book, and I have heard terrible things about that book, so I don't think I'm gonna read the second one. I think I'm just gonna keep this great feeling from Fourth Wing, and if I wanna reread this, I will. But I'll probably just read the synopsis of Iron Flame and see where it goes, but I don't think I'm gonna read that whole chunky book and just keep my positive feelings about Fourth Wing where they're at. Yeah, so there's that Fourth Wing. You've heard a lot about it, but that's my take on it. Let's go to the next one. Wait, one other thing about this book is that in previous videos, I had mentioned that I'm working on a few like secret projects, and this was actually one of them. I was reading 5 to 6 books of my favorite Booktubers' favorite books of 2023. And I made a whole spreadsheet in December and January, which I'm sure I'll throw on the screen, and came up with 6 books. However, I lost a lot of the footage when I was reading this because I was gonna have a vlog, and it just didn't work out. We're not gonna talk about it that much. But I did want to mention that this was on that list. So this was in the top 6 with 6 votes. I noticed that Becca from Becca in the Books, the girls at Plots with the Twist, Laura from A Book Circus, April from Aprilius Maximus, Jess Owens, and the Neverland Book Club are all channels that said that this was their top book of 2023. This actually tied for first place with Monstrilio and Tress of the Emerald Sea, which they all got 6 votes. And I have read Tress, and you'll get the review of that in this video, but I have not read Monstrilio yet, and it is on my list. As I'm doing my wrap-ups, I will insert which ones were for the video I just mentioned, and yeah, so unfortunately there's not gonna be a vlog for that. Yeah, this was number 1. It's also very funny because this was also on some of the Booktubers' worst books, but the way it worked out with my spreadsheets, this was number 1 with Monstrilio and Tress, and I actually liked it, so it was a win. Let's continue on to the next book. The next book I have on this list is Natural Beauty by Ling Huang, and I thought that I was really gonna love this book because the premise just sounded really great, but unfortunately I only gave it a 3.5 out of 5, and we'll get into the reasons why in a second. So just to give you a quick synopsis of what this book is about, our narrator, who actually isn't given a name, they are not named throughout this whole book, but they are a piano prodigy and going to school for that. However, there's a freak accident and both of her parents are pretty much like debilitated, and she is now having to take care of them and pay for the bills for the facility that they have to stay in because they need round the clock care. So she decides to get a job at this high-end like health and wellness business called Holistic, and they kind of give her these supplements and like all of these things to try that are curated specifically to her, and everyone that works there kind of has their own regimented schedule of these products that they're taking. And our narrator realizes that things are starting to change and it starts to get a little spooky and weird. And since it's a horror book, that's all I really want to mention. But that sounds insanely good. Like, that sounds awesome to me. It's like, especially talking about like Western ideas of what beauty is, because the narrator is Chinese, I believe. Yeah, Chinese. I knew it was Asian, but I just wanted to make sure. Chinese. So I thought just that conversation would have been awesome, but unfortunately I feel like maybe because it's a shorter novel, it's less than 300 pages, like 250, that there just wasn't enough space to tackle it as deep as I wanted the author to. I think there was a lot of space to still be had on page to discuss the influences of the beauty industry on people and their mental health. So with that, it wasn't a bad read. Like, I'm glad that I read it. Like I said, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5, but it just didn't hit as hard as I thought it was going to, because I thought this was going to be a favorite. This one is also part of the video I just mentioned, my Booktubers favorite reads of 2023. This was in 6th place with 4 votes, and let me see who had this in their top. There's Janine from This Story Ain't Over, Robin from Robin Reads, Lala from Books and Lala, and Jess Owens again. So this was number 6 of that list, and it was fine. It was okay. Wouldn't be my favorite, but I'm glad that I read it. That's Natural Beauty. Next up, we have a nonfiction, and that is Freedom is a Constant Struggle, Ferguson, Palestine, and the Foundations of a Movement by the one and only Angela Davis. I'm not going to say much about this book because I feel like you just need to pick it up and read it. It's very short. You can get through it in a day, but I can't even say how important a read like this is, especially right now in our current climate. This is basically a collection of essays and speeches from Angela Davis that is talking about what freedom means and how to start a movement or revolution. It's not like a how-to guide by any means. It's just, she's basically saying the whole point of this book is that no one's free until we're all free. So we can think of, it's all about intersectionality. So if we're having issues in America with Black men getting killed by the police, this is the same fight that Palestinians are having, that Syrians are having, that the LGBTQ plus community is having, and we all need to work together to get rights for everyone, because everyone is supposed to have their basic standard rights, and we can't pin our movements and organizations against each other. We all need to collaborate and work together, because no one's free until we're all free. That's all I want to say. Pick it up. I can't explain this as well as Angela Davis does. I'm not going to try. So 5 out of 5 stars. Pick it up if you haven't, please. The next book I have on here, I read for Kayla's book club, the Literally Dead book club, and that is Nightwatching by Tracy Sierra. I actually got this one from the library and I've already returned it, so I don't have my own copy, even though I love this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It's so good. I want to read you the tagline because that's what captivated me. I think that's all you need to know going into this suspense thriller. It says, a mother is forced to the breaking point when her life and the lives of her 2 children are threatened by an intruder. That's it. This is a page turner. Like, literally the first sentence, you're in the home invasion right away. I understand the home invasions can be triggering, so if that doesn't sound interesting to you, don't read it, because it is intense. Like, when I'm reading it, I felt like I was in the closet with them, or, you know, I was feeling these feelings, and it could be a lot. I was like, there were times where I like wanted to shut the book and like throw it, where I'd be frustrated, happy, confused. In this book, they also play with with is the mom sane? Is she not? Is this invasion actually happening? Is it not? Another layer that I really enjoyed is that the intruder, which makes it a little bit scarier, is that this intruder, throughout the story, the mom keeps thinking that she like remembers this person or she's seen him somewhere. And that is just like one of the like scariest things for me, like having like a stalker or someone that you think you've seen before but can't really put your finger on it, and now they're invading your house. You know, that's just one of my biggest fears. But anyway, this book was really great. There were twists and turns I didn't see coming. There were some that I did anticipate, but overall, like I said, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was one of the best thrillers I've read in quite some time. So definitely will pick up a book by Tracy Sierra again. And if you're interested, definitely pick up Nightwatching. And then now we're getting to the book that I read for the other book club, which is the book troop, Gabby's book troop. So we'll get right into that. Unfortunately, with this book, this was a complete miss for me. So this was Murder Road by Simone St. James, and unlike the other one, thank goodness this was a library book, because I gave this a 1.5 out of 5. So this is probably like one of the lowest rated books I've read so far this year. And this is actually my first Simone St. James. So I don't know, like I know a lot of people that like her writing and other books that are really popular, but after reading this one, I'm like, I don't know if I would ever pick up another book by them. Let me know if you've read a lot of their books and maybe there's something else that I would like, but yeah, I'm not really sure. So the premise of this book is that there's a couple who's going on their honeymoon, and they miraculously find themselves on this road that is known for hitchhikers and known for hitchhikers who have been picked up and then left murdered on the side of the road, and no one knows who's done it. Like I said, the couple, I think it's late at night, they're driving, they don't really know, the book starts out this way, how they really got there. They see a woman on this road who's asking for help, they pull over, help her, but when she gets in the car, they realize that she is like completely stabbed and bleeding to death. So they drive her to the hospital. She ultimately passes away at the hospital. And of course, the couple is under investigation because nobody else knows. They're the only people that saw her, they're the ones that brought her in. And chaos just kind of ensues from there. But there's like a paranormal element to this story, which isn't really a spoiler. I believe you can read that on the back. Same thing with what I just said. It's like that happens right at the beginning of the book. So none of it's spoilery. But it just didn't make any sense. I thought the stories didn't make any sense. The characters got on my nerves. It was just bad. The writing was really bad. It's also really funny because Katie Colson also did a long rant review for this one recently as well. And I actually agree 100% with this one because I did not like this book at all. But I'm gonna leave that down below because she will run through everything that didn't make any sense. And I completely agree. Yeah, that book was not for me. So that's all you need to know. 1.5 out of 5, don't recommend. But let's get into one that I did actually like. Next up is a switch from the thrillers because it's actually a very hard-hitting memoir, and that is Hereafter by Amy Lynn. Boy, did I cry from this book. This is a memoir about her life, and it's told in vignettes before, during, and after an unexpected death of her, I believe, 32-year-old newlywed like husband. Like I've mentioned when I was talking about the TBR, is like losing my husband at a young age, or in general, and being a widow is something that I can't even like wrap my head around. But for some reason I like to read stories about it because some people do have to deal with that. And this book was so powerful. Basically, this isn't a spoiler, but her husband goes out, like very healthy young guy, has everything going for him, like they just got married, and he's going out for all things like a marathon. I don't know if it was Thanksgiving marathon, but it was like a holiday marathon that he's doing with her family. She stays at home, but ultimately he just collapses and never wakes up after that. It's never told like what his cause of death is, just kind of random. She's told this news, and then I shit you not, like 10 days after she's aware that her husband has passed, she goes to the hospital and she has this undiagnosed disorder that she had no idea about that can be life-threatening for her, and just all of it happening to her at one time. And as sad as the story is, it's also very hopeful, and I just can't believe she was willing to put this book out, and I appreciate her for doing this and being vulnerable, because I'm sure that this helps so many other people who have lived through this and just trying to understand and grapple with grief. When I say she talks about grief and raw terms, like, it's so good. But yeah, I have it all marked up. I will read anything that Amy Lynn writes, and you should definitely pick this up if you are mildly intrigued and feel like you can kind of handle the content that's in here. But definitely check the trigger warnings and tread lightly with this book, but it's really good and an important read. Swapping gears yet again, I have a fantasy book which I adored, and that is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This was my first pirate book. I don't know how I read fantasy, but I haven't read a pirate's tale really before, and now I'm on the hunt for them because I love this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I honestly might bump it to a 4.5 out of 5 because I can't stop thinking about it and want to pick it up to reread it again already. I'm not gonna say much because with this fantasy book, this is definitely one that you want to just go in with the basics and just get immersed into the world, because that's Brandon Sanderson's niche. He's so good at world building and explaining the magic system, and I don't want to ruin it because he does such an exceptional job. But at the end of the day, basically, all I want to say is that the story is about a woman named Tress, and due to certain situations, she has to go at sea because the love of her life, Charlie, I believe his name is captured by this evil sorcerer, and she has to go fight to get him back, because that's the love of her life. That's all I want to say. If you're mildly interested, pick it up. I think this is a great way to start with Brandon Sanderson as well. But a lot of people compare this to The Princess Bride, and I think that's valid, but I'm probably gonna catch a lot of flack for this, but I don't like The Princess Bride. I don't like the Princess Bride movie. I think it's really corny. I don't think it's that funny. And I don't know, it's just not my kind of humor. So that honestly made me kind of hesitant, going into this book. But for some reason, Brandon Sanderson can do it. It's similar. I understand why there's comparisons, but like I said, I don't like The Princess Bride, at all. But I love this book and love this humor. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a thing that I just love Brandon Sanderson so much, but I had so much fun with this. And if you're interested in starting Brandon Sanderson, this is a great one to start with. It's different from anything else that he's written so far. It's very whimsical and fairy tale-esque a little bit, which is different from the other books that I've read, but he can do no wrong. Very different tone, very different style, but he still did it masterfully. Yeah, Tress of the Emerald Sea lives up to the hype. Fantastic. Hey, it is Scotty from the future here. I just wanted to pop in to update you on what would have been the stats for the vlog of my favorite booktubers' favorite books of 2023. As I mentioned previously, this book tied for first with Monstrilio and fourth Wing with 6 points. The booktubers that had this in their favorite books of 2023 video were Murphy from Murphy Napier, Megan at Megan with Books, Reagan from Peruse Project, Sydney from Sid Bookworm, Laura from A Book Circus, and Sandra for Got a Thing for Things. So just want to throw this in here. Let's get right back into the video. Next up is a romance, and a black romance at that, and unfortunately I did not like it, and I feel like a lot of my friends and followers are all gonna come for me because I've had so many people request this book for me to read specifically, and I really didn't like this book, and that is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. Same thing, I rented this from the library. I've returned it since then, but very glad that I did because I gave this a 2 star. I don't know. I feel like this it's marketed as a romance, but it's not really a romance. I don't know. If you know, you know. But the basic synopsis of this book is that the two main characters, what's their name? Eva and Shane, they had this very memorable time, 7 days in June when they were in high school. And this big event happened and they lose connection with each other for years and years and years. So it's like 15, 20 years go by, and they both happen to be authors, and surprisingly enough, they end up at the same author event, and they try to connect a little bit and see if they can kind of pick up where things left off. However, this novel is heavy. So I don't think of it as a romance in terms of like sweet and fluffy. Like, the way that they connected was not a good situation. And I just felt like even when they were adults and stuff, they weren't in a position in either of their lives that they were solid enough in themselves that they could be their own individual person and actually have a healthy relationship. I just didn't like it. I didn't think the two should have been together. I didn't think it was romantic at all, but I feel like I'm in the minority for that. So I'm sure people are gonna come for me in the comments and say that I missed something. I don't know, but it wasn't my cup of tea. I'm not saying I won't read Tia Williams again. I know she just came out with one, A Love Song for Ricky Wilde, and I've seen mixed reviews on that as well, so I'm not really interested to pick that one up. Although I know she has a backlist, so maybe I'll pick something else up. Like I said, I'm trying to get more into romance a little bit, especially Black romances, since I absolutely love Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan, which I still need to pick up the second one, and it's on my list. I need to pick it up soon. But anything similar to that, if she has a book that's more closely linked to that, let me know. But other than that, it was not for me. So I'm sorry for all the fangirls that love that book, but that's it. Yeah, it wasn't for me. All right. Last but certainly not least is a book that I read and I absolutely loved this novel, and that is As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zulfa Katow. This is a YA hard-hitting contemporary. Like I said, tagline for me, hard-hitting contemporary is my shit. But this was done so well, and it's a debut novel. How? I gave this a 4.5 out of 5. Honestly, it's been a few weeks since I've read it, and I honestly think it could probably be a 5 out of 5. This is such an important read. It's a story from the perspective of being in the Syrian war or revolution. So to give you a quick synopsis, our main character is Salama, and she is a pharmacy student when the Syrian revolution begins. And of course, there's destruction everywhere and their lives are completely uprooted. Plenty of people die. And she basically starts volunteering at the hospital. She's just trained on the fly because they don't have enough doctors. And she's performing surgeries and all of these things. And it gives her a sense of purpose with this revolution to help the wounded. However, she's at home with her sister-in-law Layla, who is in her 3rd trimester and she's pregnant. So she's grappling with the struggle of wanting to stay and be involved in the revolution and continue to help the people who can't help themselves, who are in the hospital and wounded and dying, or to flee Syria and make I don't want to say better, but a safer life for herself and her sister-in-law and the future baby. There is a romance in this novel with a boy named Kenan, and I don't want to say much about that because it's fun to see that unfold. It's a little insta-lovey, but it was okay. I feel like because it's war times and it's like a little bit different and you don't know if you're gonna live from one day to the next, I felt like it was acceptable in this YA book. And I never thought that I would be a person that says like insta-love is my thing, but I think that it worked in this novel appropriately. Yeah, I think the depiction, like the way that she talks about mental health in this book is so interesting and so well done. I think there's a character named Cough. I'll put the name here. It's a character that's kind of like the mental illness personified for the main character based off of fear. And that's all I want to say, but that is a character in the novel. And there's a twist in this book that I was not expecting. If you've read this book, don't say any spoilers, but did you see the twist that happened in this book? Because it blindsided me. I had no idea, and it was great. This book is good. I think everyone should read this. I think this is a book that should be talked about in classrooms. It was so good. Like I said, debut, how I will pick anything else up that this author writes. I ended May with an absolute banger. Please pick this up if you have not. And that's as long as the lemon trees grow. And there you have it. You have another wrap up for me. I'm so sorry that it took 3 months. It will not take that long in the future, but I appreciate you guys riding with me and being interested in what my feelings are for the books that I've read. However, I do want to take a little bit of time to go over some of the books that I wasn't able to read that were on like my March, April, or May TBR. I was going to go through that quickly to give you an update. If you haven't, I'm going to link my June, if you haven't watched it yet, I'm going to link my June TBR up in the cards and down below, which I'm going to be reading only queer authors, stories, books for the month of June, which is Pride Month. I did a little shop my shelves with me, and I'm gonna read books that I already own, and there were quite a few on there, so go check that out. But in that video, I said that I'm going to read the Wayward Children series. I've mentioned that in previous videos that I wanted to do a vlog of rereading all of those. So I will be doing that this month, specifically because Shauna McGuire is non-binary and a lot of the characters are queer characters. So that'll be fun to read and take and tackle in June. I am still reading Babel. However, it's taken me quite a bit of time to get through it. It's not, I thought there was gonna be a page turner like the Poppy War, but I keep finding myself a little distracted. Not saying that I don't like it. I think during May when I was so busy, it just wasn't the right time for me, and I'm gonna set it aside for June because it's not queer related, I don't believe. So I'm gonna pick this up hopefully in July and finish it, but I have started it, I do like it. It's just a little slower than I thought it was gonna be, but we'll see in the future how I like this one. As mentioned before, for my Booktubers favorite books of 2023, Monstrilio is one that I mentioned that I want to read, and I still do want to get to it. I'm probably not gonna get to it in June, but it's high up on my TBR list, and I kind of wanted to go over the list of those books. So I mentioned in first place was Monstrilio, Tress the Emerald Sea, and Fourth Wing. And then in second place with 5 votes is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride. I mentioned this one for a secret project. That's what the project was for in a previous video. However, I'm not super interested in reading this book, to be honest. I'm going to read it in order to have a rank for this vlog, but because I lost footage for the vlog and that's not happening anymore, it's not super high up. Like, I will read it in the next coming months. I definitely am not gonna read it in June, but let me know if you've read this book. I feel like I don't know a lot of people, so I was very surprised that this was number 2 out of all of the people that I watched their videos and tallied up, because I hadn't heard a lot about it. I just feel like it kind of came out of left field. So if you've read it and you think that I really like it, please let me know in the comments to get me a little bit more excited about it. And then Babel was also on that list with 3 votes. No, how many? Also with 5 votes. So this is for that vlog as well. I'll read this one and see how I feel about it. And the last one on there was Natural Beauty, which I've already talked about, and that was in 6th spot with 4 votes. So those are the books that I was gonna read for that vlog, but I'll keep you guys posted in the next wrap up with how all of those lined up. As mentioned earlier, the next book that I need to read is Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison, which I haven't gotten to yet, but that is up on the list. In a previous video, I mentioned the book One's Company that I was reading for my local book club, but unfortunately I wasn't able to make it that month and I didn't finish this book. I started it, but I don't know, it's just not something I would normally pick up, and since I've already missed the book club like talk, then I'm just gonna take this back to the library and just call it an L, because I'm not super interested in it to begin with. So there's that. Just because I mentioned it before, so I'm gonna let you know I'm probably not gonna read this one. The nonfiction that I wanted to read for May was We Were Once a Family. This is still really high up on my list. Unfortunately, I didn't read it in May, and in June, like I said, I only want to read queer stories, so this will be the nonfiction that I want to read in July. So if anyone's interested and they want to buddy read this in July with me, let me know, because this is definitely happening in July. And that's it. So I should have covered all of the books that I didn't get to, or are pushing a little bit until July from the previous TBRs if you've watched those. That's it. That's all. Thanks for being here for the wrap up. Let me know if you've read any of these books and how you feel about them, especially if there's some, because I know there's some controversial takes in this. Let me know how you feel, and if for some of the books that I didn't like, if there are other books by the author that you think I would enjoy, please leave them down below, because I always like to give an author at least a second try. Other than that, thanks for being here. Like, comment, subscribe if you like what you see, and I will catch y'all next week. Bye.